Welcome, everybody. Give it a minute just to get started. Get something to drink. All right. So, what we were working on the last couple weeks has been the Gamers Night Out for the Switch 2. Just to show you, this is a version for the Switch 1. What the Gamers Night Out is a wallet with optional wristlet strap that you can fit your game system into, as well as your cards and your money and your video games, your game cartridges. So now I'm not going to do it for this one, but I do have a tutorial on how to change some of the card slots into game cartridge holders, but I will do that again at a later date. But so just to show you, we have our card that's for our money. We have 6 card slots. So you see 1, 2, 3. And then you have the interior zipper pocket, which is where I keep my games. So if you see, I like to put the fun fabric on the inside. And to make sure that your fabric is right side up, I will tell you how to make sure your fabric is right side up in your pocket when we do the pocket today. Also, so if you look, last week we actually put a flap over the card slot so that the cards are not scratching your game system. That is one option. You can also make the optional game sleeve. So just it wraps around your system, protecting the screen. And so I have that and I wrap it around my system, put it in there, and then I zip it closed. See, nice, nerdy materials. So just to show you, I have previously had it for the Gamers Night Out. I have previously had for the Switch Lite and for the Switch or OLED version of the Switch. Now I am releasing one for the Switch 2. It will be released on November 28th, which is Black Friday. I also will put my other patterns on sale at that time. So previously, we have just basted our foam to our exterior. I've got my 2 lining pieces, and I'll go over all that. This is the console cover or screen cover for the particularly. So as you can see, and I have calculated it for the Switch 2. As you can see, I've got some really awesome Pokemon designs on here. Really love this fabric. This is from Alchemats fabric. Then I have my zipper pocket. And one thing with the zipper pocket is that we have the Pokemon. So that's what I want to be able to see when I look in, is right side up. So whenever you mark to do your zipper pocket, you mark, if you see, upside down. And because this is where we will sew, what is sewn, this is what we will see when we open the pocket. So I'll be able to see Charmander when I open the pocket. And I'll explain that as I'm doing it. Thank you so much. And then we have our zipper tape. We have our interior zipper pocket with my Squirtle Blue Squirtle Squad. And then for my exterior, I'm still doing Squirtle Squad, but instead I've got the Antique Bronze. So you can tell I'm a Squirtle fan. But previously, last week, 2 weeks ago, we made our handles, which we have not attached yet. And we made our wristlet. This is optional. And we made our D-ring connector for the wristlet. The fabric or the pieces? Which particularly are you wanting to know? I make these. All these are made by me. But so last week we started working on the lining. We made our card slots for this one. So if you can see, we have 4 cash and we have 3 card slots. But this one is the optional flap over the card slots so that it protects your screen. This Pokemon fabric is from 2 different places. The Pokeballs are from Backstitch Fabrics, and the other is from Alchemet's Fabrics. But this covers up, and this will protect your screen, that your cards or whatever you have in here will not rub on your screen and scratch it up. So you have the options to either do this or the screen protector. Welcome. So today where we're going to start is we are going to put our interior zipper pocket on the other lining piece. That's the first thing we're going to do. So first thing we need to do, we're going to find our center at the top. And as I've always said before, I use a Sharpie when I'm marking my center because it's inside my seam allowance so that it is not an issue. Okay. And so you can see it even on the front. You can see that little red mark. That is my center mark. And if you look here, I have marked my center mark. If I were to sit here and sew it from start to finish without explaining as I'm doing it, it takes me about 3 hours. I'm doing this tutorial over a few weeks, so I'm doing certain parts, and I go a little more in depth about than what I need to do for myself. So, but this is my pattern that I wrote, so that helps. So you can see I've marked the center on our pocket. So you can see that the pattern is upside down. We want that because this is what's going to go up against our fabric. What we're going to do is we're going to measure down from the top and match up our centers. So I'll go ahead and pin this down, and then I will show you what it looks like. Okay. And you're pinning them right sides together. Hi, Annette. Welcome back. So we are getting started on our zipper pocket for the interior. And I will, as I said before you got here, I am planning on releasing this pattern on November 28th, and all my other patterns will be on sale during that weekend that it is the introductory weekend. So, okay, so we are an inch down from the top, centered. So if you can see, the center marks are lined up. So I have drawn 3/4 from the top of this pocket piece, or what I marked as my top, what I wanted to be at the top, a 9-inch by 1/2 inch rectangle. So basically you draw a line centered 9 inches, and then you go down. It depends on which size you're making. For the one I'm doing, it's 9 inches. For this Switch Lite, it's smaller. And for the Switch regular, it's a little bigger than the Switch Lite, but it's not as big as this one. So this will depend on which one you're doing. But you are going to measure down, no matter what, you measure down 3/4 of an inch. And following the pattern, you will mark how wide you need to have your square. And then you go down 1/2 inch, and that gets you your rectangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around this box, and then we'll come back. So I will move y'all to the machine real quick. Now I usually start in the, and I can tell my dog has been underneath underneath my sewing machine again. My foot pedal's in a weird spot. I always start in this top left corner when I start sewing these boxes. And as always, don't forget to backstitch. So as you see, I just take my time. And when I get to the corner, I leave the needle in and I pivot. Since it's only a half inch wide, it's only like 4 or 5 inches, depending on your machine. I have my stitch length at so depending on how big you have your stitch length is how you do it. Oh, I don't usually have an issue. I have sewn into my finger. I think everybody who sews eventually sometime does do that. But I actually have a guard right here. Actually, this is a narrow foot is what I'm using instead of like a zipper foot. And that's my preferred because as you can see, I do put my finger right up next to the needle. And if I'm actually using a zipper foot, then I sometimes have issues. That's when I'm more apt to hit my finger. So we're going to trim our seam allowance. Now, I don't normally draw it off just because I'm an old hand at this, but if I can find my pen, I'll just show you kind of like, for somebody who's not done this before, drawing this off to cut open your slit will help you. And I'll show you what I mean once I finish drawing it off. Basically, you are cutting an opening in that rectangle you just sewed. And I'll show you what I mean. But if it makes you feel better to draw it out, and I'm drawing this out because I'm showing you. All right, so if you can see, you draw a line centering the middle of this, and you leave about 1/2 inch from each side, and you draw basically a triangle down. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold our fabric over in half, and we are going to cut our hole using those lines. That's what I said. A lot of times at this point, because I've been doing this for so many years, I don't usually draw my lines because I can kind of eyeball it. But for those who are new to making pockets and stuff, it's a good thing to do. Okay. We are going to cut the other side. And I'll show you what it looks like, and I will turn the camera around just for a second. Okay. So just to show you what it looks like, we have cut this open. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to, so now that I have that, so you see my pocket's a lot longer than my lining piece. What we're going to do is we're going to pull the lining piece through the hole. Craft fairs take a lot out of you. I have 2 coming up. One the Saturday after Thanksgiving and one the first weekend of December. Sorry about that. Okay, so we are pulling our pocket through. So I'm going to get over to my iron. So if you can see, I'm just going over here a little bit, kind of where you see my iron at. Got lots of stuff on my iron because I've been working on a lot of orders. So my table's a little crowded, or should I say my ironing board's a little crowded. I had Stabilizer come in today for some stitchable ort trays that I do. So it kind of takes over at times when you get packages in. And had stuff come back from a trunk show, so I had to start unpacking that. To Melody, which is kind of like a craft show, except it travels and I don't. So I mailed off stuff about 3 weeks ago, and I got sent stuff back in the mail today and a check. I like those because I didn't have to work it. So yeah, I've got my big Thanksgiving, well, kind of Thanksgiving. I got 2 big Christmas bazaars, is what my 2 events are. Craft shows are fun, but they're a lot of hard work, and one of mine's inside and one of mine's outside. So I'm probably going to freeze my little Batootie off at the outside one, usually do. And the inside one usually is pretty busy, so I'm looking forward to that one. And I'm inside and have electricity. So it's always a good thing. So what I'm doing right now is pressing my lining through the hole where it's nice and flat, giving me a nice square. And this is so we can insert our zipper in here. So I'm going to press it from both the back side and the front side. And I'm doing that so it lays nice and flat. So my goal for today is to get it to where we have our handles attached to our exterior and our exterior pocket and our interior pocket done. So I'm going to grab my double-sided tape right here. I understand that. So I have pressed it. So you see it looks nice and pretty. And if you look at it from the back side, you're like, oh, it's upside down. But if you want to make sure that you've done it right, see, I fold it up because my pockets are folded up. You can kind of see it's right side up because you see Charizard sticking his head out through right there. So I know I've done it right. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to find my little zipper. Okay, where did I put it? There it is. So this is where I have my little blue Squirtle Squad Pokeball. Now, I don't always put double-sided tape, but to help you hold it in place, I use 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape to hold my zipper in place. And if you're curious to know where I get my double-sided tape, it's from Wizardry Stitchery, which is, their website is geekyhardware.com. They have actually a lot of my variegated threads come from there. They're my favorite solids. That's where my white thread comes from. The blue variegated I'm using for this bag comes from there. I have one that's called Phoenix Fire. That's a rainbow that has reds in it. And then I have one called Unicorn Mane that is a rainbow that has pinks instead of reds. Then I have one called Fairy Floss that's pastel rainbow. So they have, and then I have lots more. I have some solids, and I have a pink one, pink variegated, that is called Strawberry Shortcake. Kind of looks like her too. So I have lots of different colors and variegated from there. They're one of my favorite threads. But just to show you, I will finish putting the double-sided tape on. And then I'll show you what it looks like. Like I said, I don't always put the double-sided tape on, but just to show you how I even put it in my instructions. So there's the double-sided tape. So what I do is I take one side of the double-sided tape off, and I do that on purpose, and I would adhere it to the top of my pocket. And I say the top because it makes it easier for me. Let's see. Let's get that in place. And basically, you want your zipper tape to have be equally divided in between it. So I am sticking it down, and I will show you what it looks like before I sew it down. Yeah, I love 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape. So after I do that, I will fold up my pocket. So just to show you, I will fold up the pocket and pull off the second side of the double-sided tape, and then fold my pocket back down over it. And my zipper pull, I had put through the hole of the pocket so that it was not going to get caught in the double-sided tape or anything like that. So I will show you what it looks like before I sew it together. Now, usually I will actually make my zipper go the other way, but it really is not an issue one way or the other, which direction your zipper's going. Like I said, usually I have it where the zipper pull is over here. That's not an issue. It can go either way. So if you worry, like, oh, I put it upside down, it's not an issue because this is an interior pocket. So it's more your preference. And since this one's for me, I'm not going to switch it out. If I were doing this for an order, I probably would just lift up right here, since it is just double-sided tape, and pull off my zipper pull and run it back on. That would just be me. But since I'm not, since this is mine, it's staying where it is. All right, so we're gonna move you back to the sewing machine. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna start at that top corner again. And we are going to, about 1/8 of an inch back from the thing, and we are going to top stitch all the way around with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And this will secure our zipper tape to our pocket. I can hear my husband playing Mystery Science Theater in the living room. Such an oddball show. But we are just taking our time going around. And so I get to the edge, and then I go 1/8 of an inch further, or 1 stitch further, turn, and we just do the same thing again. So now that I've done that and we're past that, I'm going to go ahead and zip my zipper closed. And we're going to get this all done. And we're going to go around that last corner. Mystery Science Theater is from, I think it started in the 70s or 80s. Basically, they take old movies and there's like these two robots and um, a human that are making fun of old B movies, basically. So they are making commentary on the movie throughout the entire movie. But yeah, if you look up Mystery Science Theater 3000, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're trimming our seam allowance. And as you can see, I have a good bit of zipper tape left right here. I will actually take and trim this down so it'll be out of my seam allowance. I'll leave about 1/4 of an inch left. And I will still take my lighter and flame the ends of this zipper tape to make sure that it does not fray on me. All right. Yeah, my husband loves that kind of corny stuff. So we just flame ends. If you heard me say, whenever you cut zipper tape, use a lighter to do the ends, and that'll keep it from unraveling. So I always have a lighter nearby. Don't be afraid of fire. You can use, and don't burn it either, catch it on fire. You, instead of flame, you can use fray check. This is instantaneous. Fray check has to dry. So there you can see that. As you can see, there's my nice, pretty zipper pocket. Well, right now, it's just an open hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pocket and we're going to fold it up. Now, a lot of bags have where you turn it through the pocket. This one is place. And then we are going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance to sew this pocket closed. But yeah, if you look on like Prime or like some of the Freebie or something, you can find since I'm doing something on the embroidery machine, I always have to have a lighter handy for stray threads and stuff. So I'm actually working on a little zipper barn on the embroidery machine for an order. So with finger puppets. So have to have the lighter nearby. So I usually keep it on the table right in front of my embroidery machine. So that helps. So right now, as you can see, I'm still just pinning. Now, if you've seen me before, I don't always pin a lot. This is one place I do because you want your pocket to be in line with each other. So if you can see, there is my pocket folded up. So if you wanted to see what it looks like, you can do this even with it not sewn. So there is our Pokemon right side up when you look in the pocket. So I can show you the finger puppets. They're from Creations by Connie. I had a customer order some finger puppets. Barn's mostly done. I just got to put the back on and lining on the other side of the lining on. Sorry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side and we're going to sew, starting at the fold, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around and back down to the other side. And that will finish off our pocket. So I'll turn this back here. Let's get something to drink so I don't cough y'all to death. Gotta love all the changes in the weather. Okay, so So we are sewing at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and I'm going to turn. Yeah, if you actually look, I was once upon a time one of Connie's testers, and the pictures for the barn were actually my pictures. I was the one who tested that one for her. So it's about 4 years old. I can tell you that. I was looking it up, almost 6 years old. So even if we don't get I'm going to move my zipper out of the way just so I don't hit it when we're coming this direction. Always good to move things out of the way. It depends on the number of finger puppets. I do the little 5x7 barn and 3 finger puppets. I do 25 just because the barn takes time. But if I'm just selling just the finger puppets, it's less. I think for 3, I just do 10 or finger puppets for 3. It depends on how detailed they are. Some finger puppets I charge a lot more because they're more detailed. So, all right. So I'm going to trim off the excess fabric here. And you don't have to do that. There's plenty of room and where it won't affect any seams or anything. That's just my own personal preference. It's not gonna, like I said, it's not gonna affect the integrity of the bag or anything like that. Excuse me. I'm gonna turn this away so you can see me. All right, so we have our pocket sewn. Pocket. And stick our hand in. Now I make this, and I put 5 of them together, so you have the 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. So it just depends, but that's a very simple thing. I can put 10 on one sheet on my machine at one time and not have to change thread colors. So we have our 2 interior pockets done. 2 linings are done. We have our zipper pocket, and we have our card slots with a card flap. That is optional. Now, what we're going to do next is we are going to find the center of our exteriors. I said, again, I will use my Sharpie. And after I find the center, I need to mark over 1 inch from the center mark on either side. This is for placement of our handles, because before we can put the zipper on, we have to put our handles on. And you will see why in just a minute. Okay, so as you can see, now if you want to go ahead and mark for the next part for the zippers, from the straight edge, so you see you have a curved edge and a straight edge, you're going to mark 5/8 of an inch from the edge. And this doesn't matter. This mark does not change from the brain's not want to work, depending on what size. However, the next marking, you will also mark a certain marking, this one, and you will mark it here. Depending on what size you're making is how far apart those marks will be. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this for the switch 2. And go ahead and get that marked. And that's just for zipper placement later. So it's just easier to do it before everything is added. So you can see all my marks. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, now when I had my single, now I do have a single needle. I have a 770 as well. So when I used to do it, sometimes I would do multiple hoops and do the same step over and over again, just back up. But I have a 6 needle that I run my stuff through, so that makes it a little different too. And marking my centers and my 5/8 mark and my marking from there. Like I said, that this is dependent on which one you are making, because one has like 7 inches between the 2 marks, one has like 10, one or something around that. Not quite that, but you have to know which one you're making, whether you're making it for the switch 2, whether you're making it for the switch light. That will make the difference. Okay, so right now I am marking my center and 1 inches from either side. Okay. So just to show you what it looks like. So we have this one and we have this one. So just to show you, the curves are different. All right, so what we're going to do here is that we have our center mark. The center mark is just so you can put your handle marks, basically these marks right here. So I will take my little pen and use a pen because I'm going to use that to help guide where I put my handle. So I will do that on both, because I need to be able to rest my handle up against something, and I use that to rest against the handle. And I'm going to do that on the other side. So this part is the exact same for all 3 sizes. Adding the handles, that will not change. And we may stop there today. We'll figure that out once we're done. See how far we are. So all right, so just so I don't tell you wrong, okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our handles. So these are our ones that we made that have the raw edges tucked in. So if you see, and what we're going to do is we are going to place them on the side of this pin. And that's what I'm saying. I use the pin, just kind of push it up, and it's 1/4 of an inch, 1 1/4 inch down from the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my little ruler and I will move y'all to the machine. And so what I do when I'm doing this, I like to have where my open seam is on the inside of the handle. That's your own preference. So what I will do is I will take my ruler, I'll get it right up against here, and I will put it where it needs to be, and then I put the handle, well, let's get the bottom of the handle equal with my ruler and up against that pin. Now we're just going to start at the bottom, and we are going to sew it down using a 3/8 of an inch square, and then we're going to make our X in a square to hold it down. Now, if you notice, because I'm using canvas, my handle is thicker. Instead of doing the reverse stitch, I actually just turn my thing around. Sometimes that's just as easy, and you're not going to have skip stitches or broken needles. Ask how I know. Okay, so I have found with my stitch length at about 2.5 inches, it takes me about 3 stitches to do 3/8 of an inch. So basically I can do 1/8 of an inch per stitch. You can be exact. I don't worry about the being exact, but as close as you can to a 3/8 of an inch square. So I will go back down to finish up this square. And then we will do our little X. And I will show you this when I'm done. Ha ha. So we are just going diagonally across our square. And then the reason I do it this way, the reason I start my square down there, so that when I'm sewing across to do the other side of my X, that I'm sewing across the top of the handle again, so that's giving me extra security and more weight bearing there. So I am going to trim this little thread, and I will show you what it looks like on the front and back. So you can see up here, it's hard to kind of see it on the front, but if you look on the back, you can see my nice pretty little square. So we're going to do the other side. So I'm going to take my little ruler. See, I've got my pin here, and I'm going to fold this down. And you're like, wow, this is a really short strap for this. Remember, you got a seam allowance in here that you're going to sew your zipper onto. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to take my little ruler, measure down 1/4 inches. And right beside that pin, that's the reason I put a pin after I've marked it, mainly so that it does not move. Now you could use some double-sided tape, you could use a pin to hold it in place. I find they don't move when I don't want them to. Well, we try to warn them and then they're like, oh, that won't happen to me. Let's just say I broke a needle on the first switch to one I did about a month ago. So that's why I said I know that sewing through canvas is very thick. I'm going to go ahead and pull my pin out now so I don't accidentally sew through it. Okay. Excuse me. So like I said, I just sew. I found that 2.5 inch stitch length basically is 1/8 of an inch. Things that you find out over time. So we are just going slow. This is not hard, this part. I say take your time so you don't have issues. So even if we don't sew our exterior zipper tonight, we will get it prepped and ready to go. So we can do that first thing next week and we can put everything together. So we're going to trim this thread front and back. So we have our nice little handle and you can see how secure it is. And if you see the back, there's a nice pretty handle stitched. We're going to do that to the other handle real quick. So I make sure to grab my other handle. And I have my ruler and I measure down 1 1/4 inches. So I just make sure that my bottom of my handle equals that. And yes, I hold it in place. You don't have to, you could wait till you move it over here to measure it, but that's just my own personal preference. So we're just going across again. And so this part is just the let's get it done. Okay, and we are going, basically you're following your top stitching from when we top stitched. So you were stitching over existing stitches on your handles. So that makes it very easy to have a line to follow. So we're gonna do our little X. Okay, and we go across the top again. Okay, so we are done with this side once I get my reverse stitches in. Okay, so we will trim our thread. Now I will tell you that you're like, this is a teeny tiny handle. Can you do that with vinyl? You can. I have. Don't have that one with you me to show you, I made it out of for a chocobo. So you can use, just don't use a really thick, like super thick marine vinyl. So since this is the case, what I'm going to show you what you can do is to actually have it turned. And I have my ruler right up next to it and at the edge. So there I can just start sewing. Okay, and we're going to turn it. Okay, so we are doing our last handle piece. Now make sure you put your presser foot down when you finish turning so that you don't get a big bird's nest underneath. Now, if you're using a non-printed, now I am using a variegated thread, but it's hard to see the stitching because it is similar colors that are in the print. So if my lines of my top stitching and my stitching to hold the handle down is not exact, nobody's really going to notice, because as part of the reason I chose this thread, it is a contrast but also a complementary thread. Okay, so we have our handles, and I will tell you, that's the thickest part of, one of the thickest parts of the entire bag. So, all right, so first things first, to show you, we have two exterior handles. So you can see I wasn't sewing on the same one. All right, so our next thing is to actually prep our zipper. So we have our long zipper tape. Depending on which switch you're doing this for, is how long this will need to be. So this is not a straight zipper. This is where we are going to make like one end that is finished. So the best way I can tell you to do this, we are going to actually open the zipper. Make sure you can actually take your zipper pull off, just your own preference here. So what we are going to do, just to show you, we're going to open it about an inch. And we take and we fold it down. And you're going to match up your sides. What you're going to do is you're going to fold together. Now, I usually go towards the edge so I don't have to trim off stuff later. And you're going to pin it for right now. Okay. So then you have basically a 90-degree angle. So if you want to see what the back looks like, that's it. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So basically we are taking it, we're pinching up a piece, and we're folding it and folding it over to the side. And then we're going to pin it in place. And just so you can see, here is both sides of your zipper tape. So if you notice, it forms like a little T. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go baste here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides to secure this. This is not going to be seen, so don't worry about that. You're in your seam allowance because our seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch. So don't worry about that. Okay. So we have sewn that. I'm going to trim our threads. Here's one part. Here it is. Finding my zipper tabs. Because I had fussy cut a Psyduck for my zipper tabs. Because that's part's coming up next. And if you don't know who Psyduck is, he's just a water Pokemon that happens to be my favorite after Squirtle. So, and I'll show you what he looks like. But that's not necessary for you to know that. But you can fussy cut your zipper tabs with what you will see. All right. So now we have our little T, and you can have a little bit hanging off here if you feel better about having the extra. So now we have our zipper, and I'm going to zip all the way up. If you see, it's not going to come off because we basically have made a 90-degree angle. So it's not going to come off. So now what we need to do, depending on the size, I have actually said what you need to trim this down to. It's one size for the Switch Lite, it's one size for the Switch regular or OLED, and it's another for the Switch 2. So I'm going to go trim this down. Oh, it's called, I know how long this has to be for the, and you will take and make this at the, you start with your, where your zipper pull is at the T, and that's where you're going to mark to. And depending on which size you're making is how long you will cut your zipper tape. I have given you extra on each one. So just to kind of show you how much is left over after I trim it. It's about that big a piece. So yet again, I need my my lighter. I'm looking at the flame and I called it a flamer. So just ignore me in that regards. So we're just going to prep the zipper tape just for next week. So I have my 2 zipper tabs. This is my exterior. And if you're wondering, that little guy right there is Psyduck. He's kind of a quirky little water Pokemon. And then that's my lining. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich my zipper tape, the other end, the flat end, in between my lining and exterior zipper tabs, and pin it in place, and then sew that together with a flamer. It's one way to say it till I'm tired. But pin this in place, and we're going to sew it together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So maybe I'll tip back to the machine slightly. So if you can see, there's my exterior zipper tape, right sides together, and then lining and zipper tape right side to the wrong side. Like I said, sandwiched in between. So we're going to sew this together at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, apparently when I emptied that, my thread came out. That's always fun, right? All right, so we're going to trim our threads. So there, we've made a new word for what we use to flame the end of our zipper tape. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to fold down our zipper tabs, and we're going to top stitch at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And just for in the future, when we're doing the rest of our lining and things like that, when we're adding our zipper to our main bag, I'm actually going to top stitch all the way around, making this one piece. I will show you as I get it done. Okay, hold on. Think y'all would like to be able to hear me, so I had to switch headphones real quick. So what I'm doing is I'm just following around the fabric to make this one piece, your zipper tab, basically one piece, so you don't have them where they move around, because they don't need to be separate. So we are just basting them together to make one continuous piece with your zipper tape. And as you can see, I fussy cut my little side to be right at the bottom of my zipper tape, or in the zipper tab that will actually show. And he's centered, if you see that too. He's right centered at the zipper tape. So we are actually going to stop there for tonight, because if I go to try to and actually put the zipper in, then we'll be here another half hour. So we will do that next week and hopefully finish putting together the bag next week. If not, we will finish the very last bit the day before Thanksgiving. We may take that, if I can get it done next week, we may take a week off the week of Thanksgiving. We will see. So, so what we completed today, we have made our zipper tape. So if you see, there's our zipper tape. And as you can see, it is one piece with our lining and our exterior. So we have one long piece. We have added our handles to our two pieces. The one curve here and then the opposite curve over here. We have finished our lining pieces. We have our zipper pocket here. And we have our card slots with the optional card flap right here. And we have our D-ring connector and our optional wristlet. So all of our big pieces are done, and now it's just putting everything together to get the final thing. So we will complete that next week, and I will see you next Wednesday. And I hope y'all have a good night.